Hello, I'd like to welcome everyone to the National Cybersecurity Student Association monthly webinar series. Our webinar title today is Telling Your Story and Getting the Job Done by CompTIA and Creating IT Futures. Our presenters today are Jeff Lareau, Nicole Maseberg, and Tom Liszka. If you guys are ready, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Yep. Thanks a lot. Hi, everyone. This presentation aims to answer some resume questions for job seekers in the tech industry. So questions like, are resumes still relevant? If so, why am I not getting any traction? What are the new resume trends? And what else can I be doing digitally besides just my resume? Go to the next slide here. Hopefully this works. There we go. Let me introduce who's talking here. So my name is Jeff Lareau. I am actually, my title has changed since we made these slides. I'm currently the Manager of Strategic Partnerships here at CompTIA's Creating IT Futures. With me is Nicole Maseberg, who is the Workforce Development Program Manager, and Tom Liszka, the Manager of Social and Digital Media. Just real quickly, just a little bit of an intro to CompTIA for those who aren't familiar. CompTIA, which stands for the Computing Technology Industry Association, is a global non-for-profit IT trade association. Our mission is really to advance the IT industry through networking, education, thought leadership, certifications, obviously, if you guys know of the A+ and Net+ certifications, things like that, advocacy, and then philanthropy. Now, that last one is kind of where we come in the philanthropy side. We're from what's called Creating IT Futures, which is the largest charity of CompTIA. And we create IT on-ramps for underrepresented populations in the industry, such as women, veterans, ethnic minorities, things like that. So if you want to know more information on CompTIA or Creating IT Futures, you can go to comptia.org or creatingitfutures.org to check out all the stuff that we do. All right, give me 1 second here. We just have an agenda slide here. The first half of this presentation is about how to showcase and tweak your resume for IT roles, and really that starts with applicant tracking systems and understanding what HR and hiring managers are looking for. After that, we're going to talk about LinkedIn and the huge role that that plays in IT job searching, and then finally we have some information on how to be creative in your IT job search with things like video resumes and infographics. So while I'm on the slide, I want to answer that first question that I mentioned before. So are resumes still relevant? People always say that networking is the best way to get a job, and that is totally true. Networking is more important than your resume without a doubt. But the thing is, in most situations, you still need a good resume, even if you have a networking contact at whatever company you're applying for. So for example, I knew 2 people at CompTIA before I got the job here. And even with those connections, I still needed to apply online and submit my resume and go through the whole HR rigmarole in order to get this job. So if my resume was garbage, right, I wouldn't have been brought in even though I had those 2 connections at the company. So for you guys, you still need to submit your resume to companies that are mid-size or bigger during your job search. Sometimes those smaller companies, you don't need to go through the resume. You can just kind of go straight to the HR person and talk to them. But mid-size and bigger companies, you definitely need to go through what are called applicant tracking systems, which is a nice segue here. Applicant tracking systems are basically I call them the bouncers of the digital resume world. When you apply for a job online, you almost always have to go through one of these systems where you fill out pages and pages of boxes of who you are and where you've worked. You usually have to upload your resume, things like that. These systems, I don't know, they seem harmless enough, but a lot of people don't realize that they remove 70% of all resume applications. What that means is that 70% of all the resumes that get submitted for all of the jobs never get seen by a real human being ever. They're just filtered out before a human even looks at them. These systems are made to be exclusionary. So knowing why you might be excluded is really important. And they tend to be very picky with IT resumes, and I'll explain why in a little bit. What I really want to emphasize here, though, is that there are literally at least 193 different applicant tracking systems out there. So your resume needs to be what we call scannable to a lot of different types of software. And to do this, you want to make your resume so that it's kind of in this predetermined format that these systems are looking for. Now, when I say stuff like this, creative people tend to get mad at me because it sounds like I'm telling them to create a boring resume. And in some ways, that's kind of true. Nicole is going to talk a little bit later about how to be creative in your job application. So if creativity is your thing, don't despair at what I'm saying now. Also, don't forget that you can bring a super creative resume into a job interview, or you can bring it to a job fair, or you can post it on LinkedIn, or you can post it on your own website. That's all fine, and I totally, I encourage you to flex those creative muscles during your job search, particularly because so many hiring managers get burnt out looking at the same old boring resumes all day. So a good dose of creativity can go a long way. But for this particular part of the webinar, we're talking about applying online for IT roles. So you really want to keep your resume pretty standard in that case. If you're looking for jobs and you've ever said something like, I'm qualified for all these roles, but I never hear anything back, that's a red flag that you have an applicant tracking system problem. And it means the system doesn't understand that you're qualified and it's trashing your resume even though you're a good fit. If you've ever said that phrase, that's the big red flag. And go on to the next slide here. There we go. So in the context of IT, keywords are the biggest asset to getting past an applicant tracking system. The IT world is filled with so many different acronyms and certifications and programming languages that it's basically alphabet soup, right? And the easiest way for IT hiring managers to sift through all those resumes is to rely on what they call these applicant tracking systems to filter through the resumes with these keywords. This screen here, what you're looking at here is what an IT manager or IT hiring manager might see when a network engineer applies for a role. So pretend you're an IT hiring manager. On the right side of the screen, you can see a stripped down version of the person's resume who applied. And on the left, there's a job description from the job lead that you posted. And all of these keywords that you decided were really important for that role are highlighted here, right? The ones highlighted in yellow are the ones that the applicant tracking system found within the resume, and the ones highlighted in red are the ones that weren't on the resume at all. So, quick example, this company decided that configuration, installation, and performance were all really important things for this position to have, and those things aren't on this person's resume. Because the resume is missing some of these things, it has a 46% score overall, which really isn't very good, right? In a real applicant tracking system, the hiring manager will see a list of everyone who has applied for the role, and they can rank everyone by how high their score is. So maybe the manager wants to look at people with a score of 90% or higher, which would count this resume out. This is how most people's resumes get deleted by these types of applicant tracking systems. So what that all boils down to is IT is so keyword focused, much more so than other industries. So IT job seekers really need to put the time into finding the right keywords from the job lead that they're applying for, and then customizing their resume to that one particular lead. Anything on the job lead that the job seeker has any background in should be represented on their resume when they apply for that job. And if they have to customize, every time they apply for a new lead, so be it. I know it's kind of a pain. I had to do that during my job search. It takes a lot of time to do, but customization is really key in the IT world. I'll give you a quick example of why customizing is important. So in this slide, one of the keywords is that the hiring manager is looking for is that the fact that the applicant reads IT publications and keeps up to date on new networking tech. Well, maybe you do that, but it's just a small fringe thing that you do, so you don't have it listed on your resume. You could be perfect for this job, but your resume isn't representing that according to the applicant tracking system, and it would kick you out. So you want to read that and then customize. One of the most unfair aspects of these systems is the fact that sometimes you can have the right keyword on your resume, but it's not in the format that the system wants it in. So the system won't understand that you have the keyword, and it'll bring that overall score down. The example that I use on this slide is that you can see the job description explicitly says that the applicant must have a Net Plus certification. It's the last thing in that keywords part on the left-hand side of the screen there. Well, on this resume, it might be too small to see, but this applicant does, in fact, have a Net Plus, only they have it written as a CompTIA Network Plus. Well, since the system was looking for a Net Plus, it registered, or it didn't register that those two things were, in fact, the same thing, and then it brought the overall score down. So any keyword you customize on your resume needs to be written the exact same way as it was on the job lead. Cisco certified, right? If that's the way it says it on the job lead, you want to write Cisco certified on your resume. That small little thing is responsible for a lot of people getting their resumes kicked out. One quick word of warning, I see this a lot, don't spam your keywords. So a lot of people will try and get around this idea of customizing every one of their resumes by having one 10-page resume that has like 20,000 keywords on it. Or maybe they'll take just sections of the job lead and copy and paste them into the resume and make sure that they're including all those keywords that they need. So both of those methods will, they'll send up red flags right away on an applicant tracking system, so you want to avoid that. And even if these spamming methods do get you past the applicant tracking system, which they won't, but even if they do, it can be hurtful to your chances when a real human sees your resume, right? Nicole and I were on a phone call with a hiring manager not too long ago who voiced her frustration with applicants that have, 50 software packages listed on their resumes or 100 software packages, right? And you can understand her frustration with that. She's looking at 100 resumes, probably more, and she has to sift through all this, extraneous information that she didn't ask for just to see if the person is qualified. So you want to stick to the keywords that really just relate to the job lead that you're applying for. And that goes for bullets too. We've seen so many resumes where every job has, 45 bullet points on it or something like that, and it's really not that necessary. As a soft rule, I say 8 bullet points maximum under each section. So any more than that, and people aren't really going to pay attention. They'll just read the first couple and then skip to the next ones. Really quick before I move on, there are some basic formatting things to keep in mind for getting past an applicant tracking system. Things like no fancy lines, no fancy graphics, no boxes, things like that. These are listed more thoroughly in the appendix section of this slide deck, which we'll be able to send out to you after the presentation. Okay, you got your resume past the applicant tracking system. So you're part of that 30% of people who were able to do it, which is awesome. But now your resume is going to a real person who probably is going to be just as picky. So now your job is to grab their attention so they'll call you in for the interview, which is, easier said than done. There's a statistic out there floating around that at this stage of the hiring process, a hiring manager or recruiter will only look at a resume for an average of 6 seconds. And that turns out is pretty accurate. Once they narrow down who they're going to call for the interview, they'll spend more time on each individual resume, but at this stage, they're really only spending about 6 seconds on each one. So how do you, how do you get, as a job seeker, how do you optimize your resume so that those 6 seconds are well spent? So I have this animation here, or I guess it's not really an animation, this slide here that shows the basic sections of an IT resume. A lot of times things aren't necessarily in this order, but these are the parts of a resume that a lot of people tend to have. And here is what I call the golden zone up at the top. It's kind of has that black line over on the left. This is where human eyes naturally tend to look first when they're looking at a resume. So if there's something that you think sells you to an employer, it needs to be in this area. If it's not there, there's a real danger that information won't be seen in those 6 seconds that they're looking at a resume. So I think Tom might talk about this a little more later, but you want to think about this kind of like your personal greatest hits of your professional life, right? All of your #1 hit singles, all of your IT qualifications that match the job lead's keywords need to be represented in this area somehow. Whether they're in your summary or your skills section or your certification, it doesn't matter, it just needs to be in there somewhere. So let's go down this list pretty quickly so that you can understand the importance of these aspects of the resume as they relate to IT. So first off, you have your contact info. Obviously, that needs to be in there. In the IT world, it's probably not a good idea to use an email provider that's kind of outdated, like AOL or Hotmail. It's going to be really obvious to an IT hiring manager that you're really not up to date on tech trends if you're still using something like, like a net zero email account or something like that. Then under that, you have your LinkedIn URL, obviously important in any industry, but really particularly important in IT. We'll have Tom talk about that a little bit later. The only other thing that I'll mention about contact info is that, and some of you might have noticed this, but there's no address on the resume. That's kind of becoming a strong trend in resumes. People don't really include their address anymore. Most resumes I see now only include the city or town the person lives in rather than their actual address. Underneath contact info, we have the IT professional title listed. Excuse me. On this resume, the title is IT network engineer. This is something that I think is necessary for anyone in the IT industry who has some level of experience in the industry. If you're brand new to IT and have no experience, this really isn't something that you need to worry about all that much, but this professional title does two things. Number one, it helps you get past the applicant tracking system because keywords, right, so important. Number two, having your professional title listed at the top of your resume really helps those hiring managers who only look at each resume for 6 seconds. It helps them understand what you are immediately. So if you have a couple of years experience, or even if you have 6 months of experience as an entry-level help desk person, or you did it part-time or something like that, put help desk specialist up at the top of your resume because it's really going to help those HR managers understand what you are very quickly. Underneath your professional title is your summary. Summary is kind of the core of your greatest hits section. This is where you tell the reader what you can do to save their company time and money. You really want to emphasize that. It's basically your elevator pitch, so you don't want to make it too long. You don't want to make it too self-indulgent. You should really only put things in your summary that relate to the job you're applying for. It's very important. Also goes along with the customization thing that I was talking about before. Also, you want to remember that this isn't an objective statement. So an objective statement is something like, looking for a challenging IT network engineer role that complements my background, and so on and so forth. That style was really popular for a long time up until the financial crisis of 2008. So after that, companies, they really didn't care much about what you want, right? They don't care about what you're looking for. They care about how you can help them save time or money. So you want to get that across in the summary. Underneath that, we have your skills and abilities section, or keyword section, or whatever you want to call it. This is a list of maybe 9 or so keywords that match the job lead, and it's really only there for applicant tracking system purposes. Sort of a free-flowing section that just makes it easy to customize your resume to every single job lead. And remember how important keywords are in IT. So this section is absolutely necessary for an IT resume. If you're in sales or something like that, you don't necessarily need it, but IT, you absolutely need to have some sort of skills and abilities section or keyword section. You just want to sub in all the keywords from the job lead that you have in your background and put them in this section. And then lastly, we have the certification section here, which is basically the same thing. It's just a list of any certifications that you have that are relevant to the job lead. And, remember not to list like 350 different software packages that you have that goes on for a page and a half, right? Hiring managers hate that. They only want to see the stuff that's relevant. So now you have that golden zone all worked out, and you want to build out the rest of your IT resume. To do that, let's talk a little bit about what's different in an IT resume versus a normal one. It's a popular question with people who are new to IT or transitioning into it. And the answer to that question is really, it's not necessarily that things are totally different. You just have to focus on different aspects of your resume when you're applying for IT roles. It's not like a resume for a network engineer position is completely different from a sales resume or something like that. But there are a few key differences that people in IT need to focus on. First and foremost, keywords, right? We already talked about keywords, so I'll just reiterate that they're really important in IT. And the second thing is that IT people might need more help presenting both of their transferable skills and their employability skills in a resume format. Employability skills, soft skills, whatever you want to call them. This is the thing that IT job seekers overlook the most on their resume. They focus so much on the acronyms and the alphabet soup and what certifications that they have, that they forget to talk about their soft skills or their employability skills that the employer is looking for, like being able to communicate clearly or articulate ideas or write emails, things like that. You hear this over and over and over and over and over from IT hiring managers and recruiters that the toughest thing about finding an IT person isn't finding someone with the right certifications, it's finding someone with the right soft skills. You know, in IT, it's more likely you'll be client-facing. So gone are those days where IT people were just kind of vampires who sat alone in a dark room in the basement, never talking to anybody, right? IT people now need to show employers that they have those soft skills. They're able to communicate confidently. One thing that's really helpful for someone in IT is to clearly articulate both job duties and accomplishments in the work experience section of their resume, with a heavy focus being on your accomplishments. So let me give a quick definition of both. So you got your job duties, which are daily, weekly, or monthly tasks that you're responsible for. So one quick example here is provides end-user software troubleshooting and support. And then you have your accomplishments, right, which are anything outside of your duties where you've maybe gone above and beyond what was called of you. So maybe you achieved something successfully here. So an example would be that you won a key strategic $80.3 million opportunity related to implementing a services environment for government healthcare, something like that, right? Both of these are important in IT because, again, IT is ginormous, it's complex, so you want to quickly and simply make sure you paint a clear picture of not only what you can do, but how you can contribute and what you can bring to a company for the future. So if you only focus on your job duties, you're kind of missing 2/3 of that full picture. One thing we've heard from a lot of IT recruiters and IT hiring managers is this phrase, tell me what you've actually done. People say that all the time. Tell me what you've actually done. So to answer that question, you need to focus on those accomplishments in addition to those job duties. And then the last thing I'll say about duties and accomplishments is that you really don't want to have tons of bullets here. I kind of mentioned this before. Maybe 4 bullets under each part to give you a total of 8. 4 under the job duties, 4 under the accomplishments. That's fine for each job. In the example that we used back in our resume a few slides back, the duties are listed in paragraph form, which I think is fine, and then the accomplishments are listed as 4 bullet points. I think that's a good way to kind of break up the bullet minutia. So next, you want to quantify, you want to give context, give scope, you want to dollarize. This is, again, important to IT resumes because saying something like, if you say something like, I set up a network in my last position, well, that can mean a lot of different things, right? Was it a small network? Was it a big network? Did it take a team of people? How big was that team? Did you manage a team? How long did it take? Was it a big company? All those questions, right, aren't answered by just a quick sentence like that. Those things really matter in IT, and the people who look at resumes all day get frustrated if you don't give some sort of context and scope. And a really easy way to do this is just by quantifying things. Throw in numbers. Numbers are eye-catching, right? Anything that can be quantified should be, especially if it helps contextualize your accomplishments. And remember, 6 seconds, right? These hiring managers are only looking at it for a brief amount of time, so anything that grabs the reader's attention is a good method for you to use. IT hiring managers always want to see the results on a resume. Well, having a solid set of accomplishments and quantifying them is a really good way to show your results. And then, after all that, you should have a pretty solid, at least base for an IT resume. But the problem is that a lot of people run into nowadays is that they finish their resume and they just leave it at that, right? And in 2017, there are a lot of different ways to grab an employer's attention outside of just a resume. And one of the best places to start that is by building a strong LinkedIn profile. So I'm going to turn it over to Tom here to talk a little bit about that. Tom, just let me know when you need to go to the next slide and I can flip it over for you.
Will do, Jeff. You can hear me. Everybody can hear me clearly?
I can hear you.
Perfect. So thank you, everybody. My name is Tom Liszka. As Jeff mentioned, I am the Social and Digital Media Manager for Creating IT Futures. I've been providing basic LinkedIn training for our nonprofit IT Ready career program for about 3 years. Just a little bit on IT Ready, just so you know where I'm coming from. IT Ready gives people the knowledge and skills they need for an IT career. So in this training, it not only focuses on the hard technical skills, but also the soft professional or employability skills, which is where building out a LinkedIn profile comes in. So we're going to go over first a few must-haves for your LinkedIn profile. The first is a professional photo. LinkedIn is not the social network to use a photo of you and your friends with a night out on the town. Adding a professional photo to your profile makes you 14 times more likely to be found in search results. So for job seekers, that means 14 times more likely to be found by a potential employer or a recruiter. You want to keep it professional and relatively recent, and you want to dress the way that you would for a job interview. Under your name, on your LinkedIn profile within the header, you're going to find the professional headline. By default, LinkedIn will use whatever your current position is as your professional headline. So if you list Cybersecurity Analyst as your job title in the Experience section, your headline will also read Cybersecurity Analyst. However, you can edit the professional headline so it showcases more of your personality and what you're interested in. This is your chance to get creative and kind of step outside the formal nature of LinkedIn. Your job title is going to appear in the Experience section regardless, so having it duplicated up top becomes a little repetitive. Plus, you want to give potential employers a taste of what they're going to find in your profile. And finally, you want to add a summary, and this is a quick way to highlight your experience and interests. It's the more formal space where you can expand on that creative professional headline I was just talking about. Recent research shows that individuals who add a professional summary get 10 times more profile views from search results. So you can see that adding a professional photo coupled with a professional summary can lead to some increased traffic to your profile. The next slide here. Having those 3 items is crucial to your profile, but also to your job search. So you want to make your header count. You want to give people a reason to scroll through your profile. So let's take a look at some ways here how we can maximize your job search on LinkedIn. If you've always dreamt about working for a specific company, you can search for them yourself on LinkedIn. Now, we've all been there. Search for the company. Chances are they're going to have a page on LinkedIn. By doing so, you're increasing your chances of seeing their updates, whether it's for the release of a new product, the company's community involvement, or better yet, a job opportunity. If you want to locate the hiring manager of that company, you can search for them on LinkedIn. So as Jeff was kind of mentioning, we've all been there frantically creating an account with a company's online applicant tracking system, submitting your resume and never really knowing where it ends up. So not only can you increase your chances of your resume making it through the system, thanks to his advice from earlier on, but this is important to know the hiring manager for the company you're targeting, and LinkedIn lets you search for them. To find the hiring manager, you can use the search tool that's on top of every single LinkedIn page. All you need to do is type in the desired company name and wait a second for stuff to auto-populate, and then by clicking people who work at said company that you search for. Once you click that, if you look on the right-hand side of the page, you're going to see many filters that LinkedIn provides for you. From here, you can filter by first connections, second connections, by location, like I said, by the company, and finally by the industry within the company. So if you're looking for a marketing job within that company, you can find it. If you're looking for a tech job within that company, you can search for that by industry. Because of these filters, chances are you maybe found the right person or at least someone within the same department of the position that you desire. So LinkedIn search is very beneficial. Now, the more first-degree connections you have on your LinkedIn profile, the larger your network will be. And that's especially beneficial in a job search since you are looking for as much visibility into the hiring potential manager and employer you can get. So if you go back to the search page and perform a search using your desired company's name, from your search results, you will see who in your network is connected to that company and how. And yes, these people can make introductions for you, but they can also tell you exactly what they know about the company, who they know there, the things that they've heard about employment opportunities. Having connections to get noticed for a job is great, but it's also great to learn enough to decide whether your dream company that you've always talked about working for is really as dreamy as it is in your head. So next here, we know you've worked hard on perfecting your resume and you're feeling really, really good about it. So naturally, the next step would be hop online, copy and paste all that excellent info you have on your resume and call it your LinkedIn resume, right? And share it with the world. Well, not exactly. Your LinkedIn profile, while it may offer the same categories as a resume, Your LinkedIn profile reads exactly the same. Consider this an intervention as to not do that. LinkedIn is a personal branding vehicle of its own set of rules. So this is your chance to tell your career story in an interesting way, and we don't want you missing out. So here I'm going to go over 4 key differences that you should understand. So first, your LinkedIn profile should tell a bigger story with details, context, and some vivid pictures. This is the place for all that additional color you cut from your resume to make it one page. For example, let's take the professional experience section. You have the opportunity to give the backstory on interesting twists and turns that can't be explained on your resume. So instead of sticking with bullet points, share a bit about your work, the work that you've done. Think of it this way, and Jeff kind of hinted at it earlier. The resume is your greatest hits album, and it has a few of your greatest accomplishments as an employee. The greatest hits album is usually positioned to introduce people to a new band, and from that, hopefully it'll interest them in buying the other albums. And this is a good way to think of your resume. It's really only supposed to be 1 or 2 pages long and go back 10 to 15 years. It's not something that needs to include everything you've ever done. It's the relevant and major stuff. And in this greatest hits analogy here, your LinkedIn profile is more like the box set or an anthology that has all the possible relevant skills you've acquired up until this point. This can really benefit you in a job search because 94% of hiring managers look at an applicant's LinkedIn profile if they like their resume. And that's a huge number. So it's giving you the opportunity to impress hiring managers in a way that's possible, or that's impossible with just a resume. That's why it's a bad idea to just copy and paste your resume into your LinkedIn profile and leave it at that. You're missing that opportunity to impress the hiring manager even further. So if we go back to the greatest hits example, imagine if you bought a band's greatest hits album and you really, really liked it. So you went online to check out more other stuff, but all you found were those songs that you already have. You'd be pretty disappointed. So that's how a lot of hiring managers feel when they go to someone's LinkedIn profile and it's the exact same as their resume, pretty disappointed. Secondly, your LinkedIn profile should not be tailored. We all have several resumes that are tightly honed to certain job descriptions, and while it's invaluable when you're sending in applications and for sure a massive time saver, LinkedIn is a time and place kind of thing, and being too finely tuned means you're most likely missing out on some opportunities. Yes, you should still consider the makeup of your network, and yes, it's absolutely important to brand yourself as a thought leader, but leveraging your profile with only those people or topics in mind will actually limit you, and your network will stagnate. By focusing everything on one industry on LinkedIn, you run the risk of not even being seen for anything else. By balancing messages about your subject matter expertise with more general items, you kind of allow outsiders to relate to you as a person and kind of see how diverse your skill set really is. For both your resume and your LinkedIn profile, keywords play a major role. Jeff was touching on this earlier. On the resume side of things, your resume needs to match the keywords that show up in the job lead. Otherwise, your resume won't make it through the applicant tracking system when you apply. On the LinkedIn side of things, your LinkedIn account needs to have those type of keywords that recruiters and hiring managers are searching for when they're looking for people like you. So if your keywords are too finely tuned, you can miss out on opportunities on LinkedIn. A lot of companies now, when they're trying to find an employee, they'll skip the job postings and go straight to LinkedIn immediately to search the keywords to see who comes up in their area. So if you don't have any good keywords on your page, you're going to miss out on those opportunities. So I guess the difference between the two here is, yes, you're putting keywords on both things, your resume and your LinkedIn, but the methodology and the reason why you're doing so are different. You're trying to find employers with keywords on your resume, and you're trying to get employers to find you with keywords on your LinkedIn profile. Next, LinkedIn should include some backup. On your resume, the information you list is more or less taken at face value until it's time for your interview. But when you're making statements about your talents or your work style on LinkedIn, you have the advantage of backing up your claims. In your summary, you can say something like, I always go the extra mile to resolve a help desk ticket. But a recommendation from a former or current boss actually proves that. Or instead of just including that you love to write, you can keep your profile's publication section up to date with new articles. If you're an expert with a certain platform, you can get that reflected in your skills and endorsement section. Ultimately, LinkedIn is the show, don't tell platform. Finally, while LinkedIn is the most professional of the social networks, your profile should not be too formal. Robotic third-person resume language is not going to work on LinkedIn. A professional summary that reads like a biography on the back of a book really isn't going to be that one someone reads. Instead, draft it by writing the way you speak. You can use a conversational tone and throw in details about your work that actually humanizes you. Don't just talk about what you do, but talk about why you love doing it. So instead of focusing on the number of years of experience you have in a certain industry, explain how you got your start in the industry instead. You can also weave in bits about the types of teams you've enjoyed working on, your personal philosophy, or what kind of projects inspire you the most. Jeff, you can stay on this slide. I just have one thing I want to cover again. I know I covered it earlier, but this reminder is going to pay off. Your LinkedIn profile absolutely needs a profile picture. There are a couple of reasons why, but the most important one is that your page will never be considered complete without a picture, and incomplete profiles don't come up in search results as often as those with complete profiles. So what does this mean? That means that a hiring manager might be searching LinkedIn for someone just like you, and since you're smart about your keywords, they're searching for the exact keywords you have in your summary section on LinkedIn. The problem is you don't have a picture. So that hiring manager might not even see your name pop up in their search results, even though they're searching for the exact keywords you have on your page. So the other aspect of this is that LinkedIn, again, it's a social network or a professional network, right? So one key component of that is if you end up meeting someone face-to-face that you've only talked through on LinkedIn, you should be able to recognize that person as they walk in the door solely based on their profile picture. So it's understandable that people would confuse LinkedIn and their resume because they're both places to discuss your professional achievements. But by understanding the differences and taking the time to flesh your profile out, you're going to have a helpful complementary web page to your resume, and you can direct context there to learn more about you. We're going to be taking questions at the end of the webinar, but if you would like to follow up at a later date with me, you can always connect with me on LinkedIn. So for now, I'm going to pass it on to Nicole, who's going to discuss some infographic and video resumes.
Thank you, Tom. We wanted to wrap this presentation up by discussing some creative alternatives to the traditional IT resume that you learned about today, as well as the importance of the cover letter and thank you notes in your overall application process. Infographic and video resumes are tools that have been used to apply to a variety of creative positions in other industries, such as public relations or graphic design jobs, for quite some time now. However, they're not as frequently used for applying to IT positions. That doesn't mean that they can't be used in the right setting and may be a welcome relief for a reader who's looking for a different view of an applicant, similar to LinkedIn. So let's talk a little bit about these creative resumes in terms of what they are, how to put them together to reflect your IT background, and what things to avoid as you put a creative spin on your resume delivery. The first creative resume style we're going to talk about is the infographic resume, which is simply a style that uses graphics along with color and creativity, usually in a one-page format, to capture the attention of a reader while delivering the valuable information about how you fit the IT position the employer is seeking to fill. We've included a great example on this slide along with some rules of thumb for creating your infographic resume. Many of the articles we read about infographic resumes, which I've included links to on the appendix of our slides, stated the designer needed to be careful with the styles of graphics they were using. It is very important to ensure that the information within each graphic was easy to follow and painted a clear picture of the message the job seeker was trying to deliver. An example is that IT resumes can use graphics to show their level of experience in each IT skill. It can display the names of your certifications or keywords in a creative way and make your accomplishments stand out on the page, similar to what Jeff was talking about with quantifying. The articles talked about the choice of color as being complementary instead of bright and bold, which many people already choose. A lot of people do choose that wrong color scheme, which would cause the eyes to jump around and create confusion for the reader, so it's very important that you choose your color scheme wisely. They talked about having the infographic resume tell a story or follow a logical order to answer the questions of how you fit the IT role they are filling, which makes you stand out from other applicants and how you can be contacted. We saw many versions of infographic resumes that show a page full of indecipherable graphics and bright colors with lines all over the place that were hard to follow and understand what the job seeker was trying to say. Because of this, it was suggested that hiring a designer or using a template would be valuable to job seekers who may not have the right design skills to put this together, but still want to showcase themselves in a more creative way as they apply to IT roles. When designing your infographic resume, remember that simple is better. And when a simple format is used, it is then easy to tailor the infographic resume to each job you're submitting it for. That's right, even this format of a resume needs to be customized to directly relate to the position you are applying to, so the reader understands clearly how you would fit their IT needs and the role they're hiring for. Make things easy for yourself by creating one huge skeleton infographic resume that incorporates all the different styles of graphics, colors, and information that you've created as you've applied to the jobs using this format. When it comes to the time to customize your next infographic resume, you can pick and choose which information would be necessary to show your fit. Then just copy and paste it into your infographic resume to tell your story. No need to recreate this information every time, just tweak as needed and save yourself some time. There are a few things to be aware of when using an infographic resume. Be mindful of the type of company you are sending this style to. Larger IT companies can be very traditional in their application process, and some of the articles we read said that infographic resume submissions to a job application where an employer has requested a traditional resume will land them in the no pile immediately. Also be aware of companies that are using the applicant tracking system that Jeff mentioned earlier in the presentation, because those systems would not be able to pull data properly from an infographic resume, giving you a low score and counting you out for that position. Small to mid-sized IT companies could be more accepting of this type of submission, especially in a case where the job posting is asking for the applicant to send a resume to an email address versus directing them to a website to complete an online application. It is always a best practice to have a traditional resume ready on top of your infographic resume to be prepared to apply for the job in the way that best suits that application. A traditional resume can also help in the development of your infographic resume and ensure you are incorporating the same necessary information you would show on a traditional resume in a more eye-catching and creative way. For those job seekers who apply to roles that mainly ask for traditional resumes, it may be more beneficial for them to use this creative style on their LinkedIn profile and showcase all of their experience and IT skills in a platform where you can paint a broader picture of yourself. Since many employers view LinkedIn profiles before contacting the job seeker, as Tom mentioned, it's a great way to be able to creatively showcase your talents, all while using the traditional resume to solidify your specific fit for that IT job. Finally, it is important to keep in mind that IT employers know what they need to fill a role, and even a well-developed infographic resume will not be able to hide any lack of experience or fit for a position. On that same note, for those creative IT positions like web design, the infographic resume will not replace the need for a portfolio or graphic samples to highlight your previous work. Another creative resume submission style is a video resume. These are usually short videos done in a format that is easy to upload from the internet using a shareable link. This style of delivery is also great at showing the applicant's personality and creativity. As you create your video resume, it is important to use a simple delivery style adding in visual aids to hit home on your major points, like your IT skills and accomplishments in previous positions. When developing your content, be sure to draw out a plan using the job lead and your traditional resume to define the important components you want the viewer to know about you, including an introduction to yourself, your IT skills and experience in relation to the job lead, accomplishments you've achieved, and how you can be contacted. Then create a script that you practice, but not read directly from on your video. Make sure the components of your video tell your story in a logical format. You can record many takes which can be pieced together using a variety of video editing software, or for those that don't have experience with video editing, it was suggested that they use a professional to help edit their video. As you film your video resume, be aware of your background of your shot. You don't want to show a messy room or inappropriate pictures. As shown in the picture on this slide, you can experiment with color and set design throughout the video. To showcase your IT theme, try framing your video around a server room or a help desk setting. The link below the picture, as well as the one on the appendix slides, will show you some videos that have used creative approaches to delivering their resume content. Similar to the infographic resume, be aware of your audience. A larger IT company may not be interested in receiving a video resume, whereas a smaller company might enjoy a different approach to the application process. Those applicant tracking systems that Jeff mentioned will be able to pull zero information from a video resume, so if you have an opportunity to send this link directly to a person, you have a better chance at getting through the application process. You can also create a broad video resume that you can include on LinkedIn to be viewed as desired by those looking at your profile. Again, always have a traditional resume prepared that is customized to the IT job. At the very least, when you walk into an interview, you have a hard copy resume to hand to the interviewers. Finally, I'm sure you are all aware of this, but be sure to act professionally in your video resume. If it is not appropriate for the workplace, it is not appropriate for the video resume. There are some great links to the articles used to research this information in the appendix slide. Infographic and video resumes are highly creative examples of ways to interject your personality as you deliver the content of your resume. But did you know that your cover letter is another way to use a creative approach to making a connection to the job? Any style resume submission should always be accompanied by a cover letter. Even though only 50 to 60% of human resources or hiring managers actually read cover letters, those that do read them put a very high emphasis on the content within them. Cover letters allow a reader to let loose from the traditional ways of showing your fit for that IT role. You can name drop, talk about your interest in the company, and use more IT keywords to describe how you fit the position. There are many great articles on Forbes or The Muse that can help you to develop your cover letter content. Use a business professional format and be sure to include your contact information again, just in case it gets separated from your resume. Finally, we wanted to end the session with a quick talk about thank you notes. Many think that this practice is old or outdated, but in today's IT job market with a large number of people being interviewed for positions, it is a tried and true way to once again make yourself stand out to the employer. It gives you an avenue to put your name in front of the interviewer or hiring manager again and really bring home how you fit the IT position. The thank you note can be short and sweet, reiterating a few of the key things you spoke about during your interview and your interest in the role. Each person you interviewed with should be sent a thank you note immediately after the interview via a postmarked note or an email. Job seekers have actually lost out on opportunities because they didn't send a thank you note when an employer was expecting one. So the simple step is key to completing the job application process. As always, proofread your written resumes and cover letters and have friends and family view your video resume to check for errors or points being missed. Never hurts to have another set of eyes and suggestions. Thank you for taking the time to attend this webinar. We hope that you found value in the content we discussed today and that it helps refresh your approach when applying to IT positions. We're now going to open up for a few questions, so please type to us in the chat box and make sure you send the message to everyone so we can all follow along.
So we have a couple of questions already, a couple of really good ones. So this one is, can you bypass the applicant tracking system if you apply via LinkedIn versus applying on the employer's website? And the answer is no. LinkedIn uses a keyword system as well. The thing is, the keyword system that LinkedIn uses is a little bit different than a normal applicant tracking system. So it's going to be different, but it's still basically the same as an applicant tracking system. But having said that, there are a couple ways that you can bypass those applicant tracking systems if you're in the right position to do so. First thing is, if you know someone at the company, that's your best bet, right? If you have a contact at the company that you know or that you're friends with or that you worked with before, usually that person can just go right to the hiring manager and say, hey, this is the resume for Jeff. You know, he's my friend. He'd be really good at this position. That way you're kind of bypassing, you're skirting past that applicant tracking system. It doesn't work all the time. Here at CompTIA, I knew 2 people, and I still had to go through the applicant tracking system. It's just part of their process. A lot of middle or big-sized companies still make you do that either way. But a lot of smaller companies, like if you're looking to work at startups and places like that, they don't really have the resources to build applicant tracking systems into their budget. So usually they don't use them at all. If it's like a 10 or 20-person company or something like that, usually you can bypass those systems pretty easily at places like that. And then the other question that I wanted to address here is, given the need to customize the resume for each job vacancy, does it make sense to apply for a job within LinkedIn using the apply button? I definitely, absolutely. If they post it on LinkedIn and you're able to apply through LinkedIn, particularly if you've put the effort into making your LinkedIn profile look really snazzy and be up to date, I would absolutely apply through LinkedIn for that job position. I don't know, Tom, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. I've never applied for a job directly through LinkedIn, so I'm not entirely sure what the system is like. But
yeah, sure. So, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, LinkedIn does offer, sometimes it'll redirect you to the employer website where you have to then go to the applicant tracking system, but a lot of the jobs now that they're posting on LinkedIn have what's called an easy apply, and basically you apply with your LinkedIn profile. The good thing is this is another way to kind of avoid that applicant tracking system thing, because your resume goes directly to the person who posted the job on LinkedIn. So whenever you do an easy apply, you apply with your LinkedIn profile, you have the opportunity to attach a cover letter, or even if you wanted to attach references, you have to, or if you wanted a backup copy of your resume on there too, you can attach that, and it gets sent to the person who posted the job right on LinkedIn. So it doesn't go to their email. So the next time they log into LinkedIn, they're going to have a notification that someone has done the easy apply on LinkedIn. So it's just another way around that whole system too. So it's going to get in the hand of the direct hiring manager or the person who posted the job, so who can relay that resume over. So yes, if their job opening or job description is on LinkedIn as well, I would highly recommend applying via that way too.
Great. Another question we had here is how many pages should a resume have? Is there a page limit? What's too much? I always say for every 10 years of experience that you have, that equates to 1 page on a resume, right? So my resume, I have about 10 years of experience. It's 1 page long. I also tell people not to go too far back in your resume, so don't go back further than 10 or 15 years. If you want to have 15 years in your resume, you can have 2 pages on there. But all that experience should be relevant to whatever job lead that you're applying for, right? If you've had the last 5 years, you've been at XYZ company in a certain industry, and you're changing industries and changing types of roles, you can use those transitional skills, but you don't necessarily want to put every single piece of information on there. You can truncate that to be 1 page so that you're not kind of wasting that hiring manager's time, so that they're reading something that is totally irrelevant to the job lead. You have anything to add to that? I don't know, Nicole.
And to counter, sorry.
Go ahead, Tom.
Nicole. I was going to say, to counter that too, Jeff, if you're transitioning from a marketing industry to an IT industry kind of thing, LinkedIn gives you the room to do stuff like that. That's where you use your professional summary to talk about the changes that you've had in your career, and why all of a sudden you're focusing on a certain industry now as opposed to when you were in marketing prior. Life happens and things happen for people that they find different paths. So LinkedIn gives you the room to kind of talk about those, to be as transparent as possible.
Yep, and I was going to say, don't be fearful of the fact that you made a transition from one career to another, because there are a lot of transferable skills. Anything that relates to customer service, anything that relates to communication, and of course you're doing those job skills and abilities and then accomplishments. So make sure that you are tailoring what you're talking about to fit what you're trying to explain and portray that you would be good at in IT. So if you worked with a specific system, say you were a server in a restaurant, and you worked with a point of sale system, that's very important, because a ticket system is going to be similar to that. You have steps and procedures that you need to follow in a timely fashion. You don't necessarily have to name that system, but talk about what procedures and what you did and how you managed your time and things like that. Those are all very important for showing those transitional and transferable steps into that new role.
A couple other questions. I know we're kind of running low on time. Tom mentioned this before, but all 3 of us are on LinkedIn, so if you have further questions, you can always go on LinkedIn, add us, and send us questions that way. For whatever reason, my name is not showing up on the slide, but my last name is Lareau, and my first name is Jeffrey. You can find me on LinkedIn there. So really quickly, we have, should a cover letter always be submitted even when it's optional? The answer to that is absolutely yes. And Nicole kind of touched on this before, but the people who value cover letters, the IT hiring managers and the HR departments and the companies that value cover letters really value cover letters, right? It's not necessarily, most people probably aren't going to read them, right? But the people who do read them put a very high emphasis on them. So you want to make sure that you're submitting them all the time. And you got to be careful with cover letters, because the instinct is to just switch out the company and use the exact same cover letter for every single job lead that you apply for. And not only is that kind of a see-through tactic, a lot of companies know what you're up to, but the other thing is that you might make mistakes. I've done that before, where I submitted a cover letter to the wrong company just because I was copying and pasting from previous cover letters. So you got to be careful of that. And really, you should be trying to customize your cover letter to fit the company culture and the type of job that you're going for. So copying and pasting doesn't really work in that aspect either. Do you want to add anything, Nicole?
I was just going to say that even if it says that it's optional, showing that extra effort, that you're willing to take the time to showcase how you've researched the company, how you feel you fit, and what you think you can bring to the company is very important, because remember that static IT resume isn't going to give you that opportunity to showcase that information. So that cover letter could be really important, even if it says optional. It's a great way for you to get more keywords and be able to really showcase your fit.
One other question here, how can you tell which words are keywords? I think that's a great question. There's kind of a finesse, there's kind of an art to figuring out which words are keywords. You can kind of use, you can use these online systems like, there's a website called Wordle.net, W-O-R-D-L-E.net. And that's kind of meant to be this shortcut so that you can copy and paste a job lead, put it into Wordle, and Wordle will try and figure out which words are keywords and give you kind of a map to see which ones are the highlighted words. But it doesn't always work perfectly. So I think just reading through the job lead in its entirety and really figuring out what exactly they're asking for. The obvious ones are going to be like certifications, right? If they're asking for a CCNA or a Security Plus type certification, those are keywords, boom, right there. Those are really easy to pick out. But a lot of the ones that are harder to pick out are those soft skills where they want, they're kind of talking about how much communication you're going to be having with partners or with clients and things like that. Well, if that's the case, you really want to highlight how good your communication skills are on your resume. That's going to be a big keyword there. What do you say?
Jeff,
any other methods?
Sorry. Yeah, Jeff, I was going to say I actually had somebody send me a message, but I think it'll be beneficial for the rest of the group to hear. They were wondering if the easy apply method on LinkedIn is different from just clicking the apply button on LinkedIn, and the answer is yes. Easy apply, as I covered, it allows you to apply directly with your LinkedIn profile. You stay within the LinkedIn platform, whereas if you click the apply button on any job on LinkedIn, it's generally going to lead you to the employer website, and from there you're most likely going to have to create a candidate profile, go through the applicant tracking system kind of thing, and where it has you upload your resume, but then you still have to fill out your resume information anyways. Those are the differences there. So Easy Apply keeps you within the LinkedIn platform, applying directly with your profile. So thanks.
Thanks, Tom. Nicole, did you get any questions? We're out of time anyway. We're right at the hour mark. So like I said before, if anybody wants to contact us on LinkedIn with any further questions, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Just find me on LinkedIn. Lareau is my last name, and then the other two names are on here, Nicole Maseberg and Tom Liszka.
We just wanted to say thank you for allowing us to talk to you today and walk you through this webinar, and we look forward to hopefully hearing from some of you, and good luck out there.
All right. On behalf of the National Cybersecurity Student Association, I'd like to thank presenters, CompTIA, and Creating IT Futures for their presentation today. We will be posting the presentation on our YouTube channel if anybody wants to review it or get more information. Thank you again, everybody. Have a great day.